Hi Year 3, hi Amazon, hi Ganges. Welcome to week 5 of your home learning. Now you will notice that this week we would have been back at school for the summer term, and to reflect that you would have been back at school, all the teachers at Lyndhurst have decided to add a little bit more work for you to do and enjoy at home with your family. So each week, starting from this week, Miss Robinson will be talking you through some maths and I'll be talking you through some English, and you can find all the work that you need to do this week in those subjects on your Purple Mash account. So what we would like you to do is, underneath this video you will see a link so you can log into Purple Mash, click on home learning for Amazon and Ganges, and you will find PDF files with the work that you need to access, and which will be explained in the videos that Miss Robinson and I have put on the school website. Now, the great thing about the English that I'll be talking to you about is that each week you'll have a new book or a new text to look at, but the fab thing about it is you don't actually need the book to access the learning. Each book that you have will have a little extract that I will read to you, and that you will have as part of the downloadable work for the week, so that you can read it with your family can read it to you, and you can read along as I'm reading to you. And by a stroke of luck, the first unit that we're going to look at is Charlotte's Web by E.B. White. And for those of you in Ganges, you'll know all about that story because you've been reading it as your class read at story time whilst you've been at home. Now, when you've downloaded the unit, you'll have a 2-page sheet that looks something like this. And at the top of the sheet, you'll see that the unit says Take 5. And it's Take 5 ideas for home learning. So these 5 ideas we can count on our hand, and I'm going to talk you through what those 5 ideas are. So the first idea is called Explore It, and that's when you read the text either with me online or with your family or to yourself, and you'll just answer some questions about what you've read. Think about the language and words within the extract that we read. So that's the first activity. The second activity is called Illustrate It. So it'll be about you thinking about what you've read and drawing or painting a picture using your imagination of what you've read. So thinking about yourself as a reader and that image that's been created in your mind from the first day, and drawing that out on paper so that you can see what it looks like. Now, the third activity is to talk about it. So you will have a chance over the week for your third task to chat to somebody in your family, chat to maybe your brother or sister, and think about questions that you could answer. There's no writing involved, about what you've read and what you understand. So a nice easy lesson because there's no recording. Now your fourth task is called Imagine It, and that's where you get to use the amazing world of your imagination. And in this particular task, it's all about you thinking about how what you've read relates to real life and taking on the role of maybe the character or putting yourself in the position of the setting and imagining what that might be like. So it might involve a little bit of writing or role play, but it's really about you going beyond the text now and thinking deeper about how that character might be feeling, what might happen next in the story, and things like that. And finally, day 5 is called Create It, and on day 5, that's when the expectation is you'll do a little bit of writing linked to all those lovely layers of learning that you've done earlier on in the week. Now, as it's called Take 5, hopefully it'll be nice and simple for you because you'll just do one task a day. So on Monday you'll explore, On Tuesday, you'll illustrate. On Wednesday, you'll talk about what you've been reading. On Thursday, you'll imagine and get into role as the character maybe. And on day 5, you will write. So it'll have a similar feel to the way we work through literacy and English when you're in school. Some of the activities you might need a little bit of help on, some you'll be able to get on independently. And the plan is that Miss Robinson and I are going to ask you to just give us 2 pieces of work for us to mark out of those 5 activities. One piece will be the final task, the writing task, and the second piece will probably be the second task that you do on Tuesday, where you imagine and you paint or draw a picture of what you've read. So there'll be the 2 tasks that we'll ask you to upload at the end of the week based on your learning journey through English and reading and discussing Charlotte's Web. So that's to give you an overview of how the units will work. Now what we're going to do is we're just going to move on to talk about this unit based on Charlotte's Web. So hopefully you will have downloaded the extracts, which I've got here, and I'm going to take a few minutes now to read that extract to you. And you can also check out Miss Robinson's story reading and see if you can find where this extract fits in as she's been reading each chapter. So, are you ready? Here we go. Fern loved Wilbur more than anything. She loved to stroke him, to feed him, to put him to bed. Every morning, as soon as she got up, she warmed his milk, tied his bib on, and held the bottle for him. Every afternoon, when the school bus stopped in front of her house, she jumped out and ran to the kitchen to fix another bottle for him. She fed him again at supper time and again just before going to bed. Mrs. Arable gave him a feeding around noontime each day when Fern was away in school. Wilbur loved his milk, and he was never happier than when Fern was warming up a bottle for him. He would stand and gaze up at her with adoring eyes. For the first few days of his life, Wilbur was allowed to live in a box near the stove in the kitchen. Then, when Mrs. Arable complained, he was moved to a bigger box in the woodshed. At 2 weeks of age, he was moved outdoors. It was apple blossom time, and the days were getting warmer. Mr. Arable fixed a small yard, specially for Wilbur, under an apple tree, and gave him a large wooden box full of straw, with a doorway cut in it, so he could walk in and out as he pleased. "Won't he be cold at night?" asked Fern. "No," said her father. "You watch and see what he does." Carrying a bottle of milk, Fern sat down under the apple tree inside the yard. Wilbur ran to her and she held the bottle for him while he sucked. When he had finished the last drop, he grunted and walked sleepily into the box. Fern peered through the door. Wilbur was poking the straw with his snout. In a short time, he had dug a tunnel in the straw. He crawled into the tunnel and disappeared from sight, completely covered with straw. Fern was enchanted. It relieved her mind to know that her baby would sleep covered up and would stay warm. So Year 3, that's the extract that all your literacy will be based on. And again, you can re-watch me reading that and follow with your finger using the printable extract that's on Purple Mash, or you can ask your parents to read it to you, or you can find Miss Robinson reading that part of the story. Now, if we think about the activities that you're going to do around the extract from Charlotte's Web, the first task, which is the explore task, what we want you to do on Monday is think about the characters in that extract and the main characters. So think about Fern and what kind of character she is like. How would you describe her? What adjectives would you use? And when you were listening to that extract, did you know who Wilbur was to begin with? Did you think he was a pig? Or did you think he was something else by some of the words that were used to describe him? So when you're exploring this piece of text, try and reread it several times so you really get to understand, because each time you listen and read it, you'll pick up different layers of meaning. And one of the layers of meaning that we want you to focus on is thinking about, how is that character in the story? How is Fern coming across? And how is her family treating Wilbur? Now, on day 2, so on Tuesday, you'll get the chance to do some illustrations. And what we want you to do again is read this extract, or get a member of your family to help you read the extract, or watch the online videos of myself or Miss Robinson reading it. And then we want you to draw or illustrate or paint a picture of what you read. So just like the author, E.B. White, has painted an image in your mind, we want you to transfer that painted image in your imagination onto paper and see what it looks like. And when you've done that, we want you then to have a look at the illustrations that have been done by Garth Williams, who illustrated alongside this version of the story. Now, that's Tuesday's task, to draw. When you get to session 3, or take 3, which is Wednesday's session, we want you to talk about it. So this is a speaking lesson, so there won't be any recording, so you get a little bit of a break midweek. And in this session, we want you to think about what kind of pet was Wilbur and what you think makes a good pet. Thinking about how Fern might feel about Wilbur and what her and her parents were doing to look after them. So again, have a look at the PDF file that you've downloaded from Purple Mash and look at the different questions that you can talk about around that aspect of the text. Now, we're on take 4 now, and take 4 is all about imagining. And what we want you to do here is get into role. So we want you here to think about what it was like for Wilbur when he was born into the world. How do you think he felt living on the farm, living inside in a little box and then being moved outside? Have a think about whether you think Fern will be able to look after him. Will he need lots of people looking after him? And I want you to think about, you might decide to draw a picture of Wilbur in the middle and do some thought bubbles to discuss how he's feeling. Is he going to feel sad, scared, lonely, happy, excited? Or you might decide to write a diary entry as Wilbur, discussing what your experience was living in the house and then being moved outside, and what you enjoyed doing, what each day was like. You might want to write a few little entries. So that gives you a flavour of getting into role and going a little bit beyond the text now, and putting yourself not only in the character of Fern, but now in the character of Wilbur, the pig. Now, your final task for the week is called Creative. And in this piece, we want you to go a little bit further beyond the text now and think about your pet. And this is where you relate what you've read at the beginning of the week to your own life and your own experiences. So think about a pet that you have or a pet you might like to have. If you can't think of a pet that you might like to have, you might want to use your imagination and combine lots of different animals and different parts to make your own unique imaginary animal. And then you might like to draw that as well. And then we'd like you to produce and write a guide for looking after your pet. So for those of you that know me, you know I love my 3 cats, Whisper, Worthing and Coco. So if I was doing this task, I would write a guide for how to look after my pet cats. So I would be thinking about their shelter. I'd be explaining about what kind of environment they need to be in. So having a cat bed for them. I would be, in my guide, I'd be explaining the kind of food they like to eat. In my guide, I'd be explaining how they keep themselves busy and occupy themselves. Are they indoor cats? Are they outdoor cats? How do they entertain themselves? So in your guide, maybe think as well about exercise and the kind of things that you would do to look after them. How do you keep your pet safe? And you can do and write about all those different things under those headings for your imaginary pet or your real life pet. And even if you don't want to do an imaginary pet, why don't you think about a pet that you really, really would love to have? So if I decided I didn't want to write about my cats, I think I would write a pet guide for a dog, because I would really like to have a dog like Mr. Hamill has Rufus. So that might be something that you could write about instead. And then when you've completed all that learning for the week, please do send in your pet guide that you've written and upload it to Purple Mash. And also take a photo of your drawing of what you've read from day 2 and your illustration day, and send that in for us. So, and Miss Robinson and I will mark both of those pieces ready for the 2nd week of learning in literacy, where we will look at a new text. I hope this video has really helped you and supported you with accessing your literacy for the week, and I look forward with Miss Robinson to seeing all your lovely work and marking it. Take care, good luck, and enjoy this new phase of your learning. Bye for now.